just right out of the gate, like
right out of the gate. How dare you?
Yeah. we were talking a bit. We were joking around before we started recording how, you realize like every indie horror filmmaker saw that article and was just like, damn. But then and like I said, we went and watched your film and I'm like, yeah, that was really good. He totally deserved that. Hey, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Deep Dark Well. Today on the show, we have Dylan Clark. Dylan has a YouTube channel where you can watch a lot of really great films that have amassed a lot of views and have gained the attention of two pretty big deals in the horror world, Jordan Peele and Sam Raimi, who are producing a feature version of his short Portrait of God. Dylan, thanks for being on the show, man.
Oh, I appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to chatting about it. And like we were just talking about, it's there's kind of a weird mystery behind how things like this come to be. So it's fun to talk about that road and whatnot.
First and foremost, just out of my own curiosity too, I want to know what's it like to get that information or get that call or that email or whatever it was. Can you kind of walk us through that, like when you found out and how you found out?
Yeah. And I think this is where it's helpful to talk about this, where like, for me, that wasn't like a phone call and like oh my God, this is happening, like one specific moment. Like we released the short in 2022 and we started working on a feature version of it with Ghost House. So with Raimi in 2022, at the end of 2022. So like it was a much steadier, much slower and arduous, like there were ups and downs in that process, road to get it to where it is now. And I think the most recent thing that was really exciting was to join forces with Monkeypaw. Like that was the thing that was kind of that was in the summer, to get a little ahead of what that story looks like. But that was his last summer. And that was definitely a moment where it was like, there's no way Jordan Peele wants to do this, right? Like that's insane. So that was, that was a really exciting moment. And back in 2022, when hearing that Raimi was interested, that was also a moment. But these moments, and the path to get to a point where you're making an announcement like that, at least in this case, and I think in a lot of cases, is a much longer process than it seems when something gets announced and it feels like, what the hell? Like they're just gonna, shoot for this out of nowhere with this random guy. But yeah.
Well, you're not some random guy. Like you've built a fan base for over 10 plus years on YouTube now. Like you've put in the work, right?
Yeah. But there's still that element of like so many people in the indie space are just really grinding and like,
sure.
Who's the schmuck? That kind of that feeling. So like,
you mean exactly what I text? That's verbatim what I text Jason when I read
well, there you go.
He used schmuck specifically. Yeah,
it would have been me.
So that first initial contact, was that just through email from an assistant? We've had very limited experience with studio stuff, but our experience has been, here's an email. We'd like to talk to you and just have a face-to-face, which is now a Zoom to Zoom meeting. Is that kind of how it started?
Yeah, it started actually, I was still in school at the time. So it was like really unexpected for me. We released the short and I had, been putting stuff out on YouTube for a while and trying to grow that audience and connect with other filmmakers. And one of the filmmakers I connected with, his name is Sam Evenson, and he has a channel called Grimoire Horror. I don't know, you guys probably, if you're perusing like the short horror space, I'm sure you've seen some of his shorts.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. He's great. But we had connected on YouTube and I had sent him the short and he really liked it. And so he sent it to a buddy of his named Joe Russo, who's a writer, producer. And Joe sent it to a couple production companies. So we hopped on the phone or on Zoom. Joe, Sam, and I were talking about teaming up to do something with this, and Joe was talking about sending it to the people he knew to see if we could get other people interested. And one of the people he sent it to was Ghost House. And then Ghost House was interested, hopped on with them, talked about it more, and then hopped on with them and Raimi, which was where like it became clear that they were seriously interested, and we ended up linking arms with them. So it was a much more like, even in that like smaller time frame, it was a much more gradual progression to get to the point. It wasn't like a total out of the blue like phone call or anything like that. And it started from like a peer-to-peer thing on YouTube, which I think is really cool, that like the first person to kick this all off was a short horror buddy, who's now a very close friend, but at the time was just like a online, peer who I had gotten to know through his work on YouTube. So that's really fun for me. And I think a good, reminder to filmmakers, I think, just to like connect with other filmmakers, and you never know where that's going to go. And in this case, it went somewhere really exciting.
Man, that's awesome. What an incredible story. Because like you said, you never know. You just never know. You gotta put your film out there, work out there, and hope that people find it. And man, did somebody find it for you?
I think, and I'm sure you guys have had this experience too, but I think especially in the horror community, like people really like to chat and to connect and communicate and share each other's stuff. So it's a really rich community for that kind of thing, and that's really fun and helpful.
I would love to know the origins of the story for Portrait of God.
I mean, honestly, the process wasn't that much different from any other project, for better or worse. In this case, for better. But some of the earlier projects were built on things that were a lot more thin, but fun, but simpler. I think it's really just in this case like the religious context that has made it a lot bigger, which I love. Like I love religious horror, but I'm particularly a huge fan of taking like really confined, tight, small stories and mapping something onto it that is much bigger, and usually conceptually, that's how you can get away with it. Sometimes it's just like, saying we're in this really tight room, but like painting a much bigger world outside that we don't get to see, like that I'm a huge fan of. And anytime you can convince someone or sell someone a much bigger idea from a really small canvas, that's something I really gravitate towards. And I think this was like the first project for me that the marriage of concept and that tight canvas really worked out exceptionally well. I mean, it came from originally knowing that, I just wanted to make a really small short, as these all start as like, I just want to make something. And in that case, we were at school and we had access to a classroom. And I had a friend who was an actress who was willing to do it. And we had a very small crew. So it was kind of built on these really small foundations. And then it was just about making the scariest possible thing with those pieces and like looking really deeply at what those pieces give us. So like the classroom giving us the projector, giving us the screen, giving us these things that we'd build the film and the scares around. And then came like the religious stuff on top of that, which I'm really glad I don't know where it came from, to be honest with you. Like, I think it just came from my love for religious horror.
No, that's a great answer funny. Too.
The only thing I can think of that like in that time frame might have inspired it was like I was taking religious studies classes because I'm also just really interested in.
Oh, you think that might have inspired your religious horror film?
It might have. Well, we were talking about at that time, it was an Islam class, and we were talking about how it's forbidden to paint the prophet. And I thought that was really interesting. And so coming up with the portrait without divorced from its religious context, and then thinking about it probably in the context of that class at the time, and that concept of not being able to paint God or the prophet, I thought that was really interesting. And like, what would a horror repercussion be for doing so?
You brought up two things I think are really worthwhile for people. I mean, things that I always have to remind myself whenever I'm writing a story, but then also something you brought up in your behind the scenes that I think works in tandem. Like, first of all, it was like the idea of like, let's find the small story in the big idea. It's like, especially working within that indie space, like I think all your shorts do a great job of this, where you're zeroing in on a very specific character in a very specific moment, but something that has like an element that could easily be expanded into a feature. Like I could definitely see where Portrait of God is like, yeah, I would watch it. Like, of course, this makes perfect sense. And because you have this, especially with all the lore that you know is implied. And I know you mentioned that in your behind the scenes that you guys had cut some out, but it's crazy to me how much you could expand on some certain ideas. And I love trying to figure out like, yeah, what can I do in, 5 to 10 minutes, knowing that I've got to keep this short. And then the other thing I think you mentioned in your behind the scenes, which is something I feel like we do all the time too, is working within your resources. So it's like that combination of the small story and the big idea and using your resources. And I feel like, would you say that's true for everything you've done? Or is there anything you feel like you've kind of tried to push the ambition a bit more? Or is it always sort of like, let's make sense out of what I have and what we can do?
It's funny because almost everything I've done has been that thus far, but it's been an interesting, and I'm curious how it's been for you guys, if you felt this way as well. It's been an interesting change for me to go from someone who's so aggressively trying to design things around stuff I have, shifting into a realm of focus on just like, don't be thinking about that. Think about like what you want to do, and then find the resources to make it happen. Because if someone's giving you money, which is like, you know, if you get to a point where you're lucky enough to have the money to make whatever you want, then it's interesting to go from that former mindset to the mindset of like, well, how do I make something out of no resource, like without that mindset? I've had that. I think that's actually been a little bit of a adaptation for me to try to figure out how to get out of the mindset of just working with resources I have. But I think that comes back again once you write it as you want it to be, and then the kind of reality sets in of, well, here's how we practically would do everything, and then you kind of rewrite it to play to those strengths again, knowing what you can actually achieve, no matter what budget level. So I think that's always a helpful mindset to have. But I've had to push outside of it a little bit more recently, and I did the short last year that we're actually still finishing up, and I had a little bit more money to work on it, and I found myself in that position where like I was going to be shooting it at a location I had access to already, but we didn't have enough money to build a set. So it was that weird chicken and the egg situation of like, okay, I'm writing this for a theoretical location that we have to find. It's going to change as soon as we can't find that exact location. Like the second there's not that doorway that I've written in that it plays into this one moment, then like it's going to change. And you do have to be on your feet in that regard. Like you do have to be able to rewrite things when that reality sets in. But I think still writing to your resources is where you should start, and is a helpful thing as that process evolves either way.
Yeah. I mean, Reclaimers is a great example. Like we wrote that before. We were talking about that before we started recording, like this house we just happened to find. Like there was no scene in that movie that took place in a basement, but like once we saw the location and saw it had this creepy basement, we're like, well, of course we have to write, something about that. And I feel like that would be a tricky thing to kind of have to shift in my brain a little bit, just because we're so used to trying to work within, our means.
I have not had
I
have not had the trouble writing a script that is beyond my means. I've had a lot of trouble making those scripts, but I've not had trouble writing them.
Well, see, we need a perfect marriage of that mindset and the mindset we have. But with Reclaimers, was that a location that you found the house and then you like distressed it? Like it didn't look like that, right?
No, that was the beauty, is it looked like that.
Did it actually?
Yeah. It was straight up like a pristine abandoned home in like southern Georgia, like an hour outside of Savannah in this town called Darien. It was really well preserved. We definitely did
a dream.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
It cost nothing.
That's awesome.
We were so worried that was going to be like, $3 or $4 grand. And, and most of our movies are that or under, we try not to go too much or whatever. But like, the lady was just like, yeah, it's free. We're like, okay. With your shorts, like, and you can give me, I guess, like the general answer, but like, where do you feel like a lot of your ideas come from? Is it just an experience that happens that's spooky? Do you sort of like carve out time to just like dwell on something, or what's your process for that?
I've been doing so much feature writing and thinking that I got to kind of get back in the mindset of ideation for shorts, because I think usually it comes from location, like you're saying. Like, I think oftentimes it comes from building around a location and those very specific resources, and like usually the one actor that I have access to.
I also love that you used your sister for all those early like films.
I know she's in a couple. That's a great example of like, knowing that it is my sister and knowing that we're filming it like in our house. It's like already, okay, well, we're going to whittle down to something that really fits that. The short we did called Home Movies, it was purely based around wanting to make a short using home movies. And I think a lot of times for me, both on the feature and the short side, ideas come from watching other things. And sometimes, especially if I get stuck, I feel like the big writer's block aid is either watching something else or like research, just like starting down a rabbit hole, reading or watching about something. And I feel like if you can find an answer that's based in some kind of fact and reality or some kind of lived experience that someone else had, you start to like feel like it can help with like when you're inconfident about a solution to something, because I feel like, I don't know, it just gives you something to pull from that is real or works, or especially if you're watching other movies and they have a very simple solve for like a story problem you're having. that can be really helpful, where it's like, okay, well, I buy into this when I'm watching this movie, so I'm not going to second guess it on the page with my thing, because there's a real weird disconnect when you're writing something and you're like, well, people buy this, versus when you're watching it and you're just buying like the most abstract concepts thrown at you. Like you can really get into a movie, I think, more easily sometimes than reading a script.
I do feel like, especially, I've definitely been guilty of that, where I will dwell on something in a story that I would not give any care. Like if I'd see this in like a feature put out by a studio, I'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Yep.
But it's my little like 5-minute short film. I'm like, people are gonna care. They're gonna care. They're
gonna question.
They don't care. Just get into the gore. They don't care.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of shorts that are centered around technology. You know, home movies, Transfigure, the new one, the newish one, Remains, and Storytime. Is there a reason? Is it like technology's evil, or is like this is a fun thing that everybody uses on a daily basis, and it'd be fun to make it scary?
Honestly, it just goes back to the simple, like, screens are almost the secret weapon for micro budget short horror films, because if you only have one actor and it's just to act off of something and you don't have the money for anything, you can put anything you want on a screen that's scary as hell. Like I feel like and images like are a great thing because it's visual, and it's it just provides a lot of opportunities for scares. Like even like the screen based horror stuff that I've done, there's like a lot of stuff you can do with timing. You have a lot of control over the timing on a screen and reacting to something on a screen. Yeah, I wish I could say there was some like deep you know, psychological, like thematic thing I'm playing at there, but there really isn't. Like, you know, Portrait of God, it's like, okay, well, we have her in a classroom. She needs to be reacting to something. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's have her do a presentation. Like, let's do a scary PowerPoint short horror film. At worst, it's funny making that short. At worst, I was like, this is a short about a PNG slowly appearing on screen. Like I'm a hack. Like this is nothing. This is literally nothing.
At worst, it's that. At best, it's a Jordan Peele movie.
Well, maybe he just liked the PNG short. But yeah, it's I don't know. There's just a lot of opportunities at an indie level to like play with screens in a way and format.
I really liked Storytime.
Thank you.
Storytime was great.
I've been trying to crack podcast related story. I like visual movies that are audio based. And
same.
Really did a great job with that.
Thank you so much.
It had me.
When that first voice cut in when she's at the door, I was watching in bed. I actually threw my phone. I was like, whoa, because it's just like awesome. You don't expect it, and it's so grating.
Thank you.
But yeah, that was spooky, man.
Nowhere to run, puppy. Stay with me.
That's another example of like doing something really, really, really small again with the same kind of crew we did Portrait of God with and the same actress, and trying to figure out how we can have, instead of a screen this time, let's have her act off of something else that we can use that's like, will give us some production value that's very cheap, which is a great voice actor.
Oh my God, he was so good.
He's so good. I'm so happy with the way that voice turned out. Yeah, the guy named Sam Roberts, he was like, the short doesn't work without an awesome voice, and that guy has the voice. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, it was a good short, but the voice definitely has to carry it.
100%.
And my God, it did it. It had me on edge.
But it's also soothing. That's what I love about it. Like he's got that kind of like rich voice that I think
he brings you in, and then he just screams you.
Yeah. It's almost like insane. ASMR.
I was going to say, in a different world, is there a Storytime ASMR where he's just like gentle?
I mean, ASMR is really creepy.
It actually can be. Like a part of me is just like, I feel like I know this is supposed to relax me, but I'm a little upset.
Yeah. There's something very invasive about it. But it's interesting.
Let me ask you, how did you get into this in the first place? Like we all have our origin stories and why we want to be filmmakers. Like what's yours?
It's interesting. There was it was a combination of things where I wanted to write when I was really little. And so I did a lot of that, prose. I was very young, so it was just kind of nonsense, but prose nonsense. And then I was reading a lot of comic books when I was younger as well. And I wanted to do something visual. Like I wanted to do comic books, but I couldn't really draw to support that dream. And so I got into kind of photography, but it wasn't quite like scratching the itch. Like I wanted something a little bit more. And I wasn't even that into movies at this time, but I think it was from the kind of interest in marrying writing with the photography and wanting to do kind of comic booky visual stuff that led to doing some of the earliest short films, which were like comic book short films. They were so awful, as you can imagine. But I knew it at the time, which I think is really funny. Like I knew
you had that awareness at that time that you're like,
I just remember showing my parents like my earliest short films, even horror shorts, and just being like, this is not good. And I know it. And I am upset showing this to you. But and they're like, no, it's good.
I still feel like that with my parents and my wife.
Well, yeah, I think we all still feel like that a little bit, but it's funny at the time that I kind of felt that way. And so horror was like actually an interesting thing for me because I was getting into horror. I was reading a lot of Goosebumps, and I remember watching the Blair Witch Project really young and being like, well, this film looks as bad as my bad superhero films look, but it really works. Why is this working where mine don't? And like they're using the same, they're not using a much better camera or something, like, but they're making it work. And I feel like it was this interesting realization that like you could get away with more in horror at a very small level. Like you could actually utilize your limitations in a way that made it a classic in the case of Blair Witch Project. And so that was the weird kind of like path for me from superhero stuff to horror stuff. And yeah.
What a great moment of realization. Like this movie looks like shit and it did really well.
Genuinely, yes.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard so much about it going into it. And then I saw it and I was like, this doesn't look like a movie at all. What is this?
Yeah.
And then it scared the shit out of me, of course. Like,
of course.
But
no, it's a great film.
What about you guys? What was how'd you get into it? And what was the movie that like scared the shit out of you growing up?
With me, it was my dad kept me home from trick-or-treating at a very young age. And it made me watch John Carpenter's Halloween. And that was awesome. It. Like I was just gone.
That was it.
It was just that.
How old were you?
Oh man.
And he was 36.
I was 36.
Got to start somewhere.
Then he showed me Nightmare on Elm Street and gave me Nightmares Forever. Until he showed me the behind the scenes of Nightmare on Elm Street. And then it was like, oh shit, you can do this. Like you can make a movie.
Horror was such an interesting thing as a kid because especially like with movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and even like going beyond movies, just like Bloody Mary was like a big thing for me when I was a kid. It was so funny because like when I was growing up, I didn't love horror for the obvious reasons. Like it scared me like to a point where like I hadn't crossed into like the being entertained and like enthralled by it. I was still just genuinely frightened. And it was funny because it was like, okay, Nightmare on Elm Street, I can never go to sleep again. The whole Bloody Mary thing, I can never go to the bathroom again. It was just like everything in life was getting like checked off.
Jaws, you can never go to the ocean again.
Scooped up in your room in a ball.
I still feel like that's one of the best ways to like think about like writing now too, is like, what can I ruin for someone? Like,
yes.
Can I?
Yes. That's hilarious.
For me though, I think it was probably Evil Dead. I think that certainly like my sisters were very into horror when I was younger. I have a twin and a younger sister. They were both. My little sister's still very much into horror. My twin is, she could go either way. We went and saw Paranormal Activity together, and we had to go home and watch the Hannah Montana movie afterwards as a cleanser for her to sleep.
Yes.
But my buddy Sam showed me Evil Dead pretty early on, and I remember that one really like I was just like I don't even know because it just felt so different, similar to like how your experience was with Blair Witch. I was just like this doesn't feel like the movies I've seen. Like this feels different and it does feel like genuinely like evil. Yeah. I was like, there's something so unsettling about how this, and I was seeing camera angles and different techniques that I hadn't seen or wasn't familiar with. So I remember it just really made an impression on me. And I mean, even in Reclaimers, I mean, like the whole, like, the creature vision. I mean, it's just like obvious. Like there's not, it's not even like an homage. It's just a complete steal of like,
no, it's fair game. It's funny. I was thinking of that watching that short, especially the one shot, like right before it hard cuts to like outside. Yeah. Just her screaming and going in the push. I was like, okay, that's
just like,
that's awesome.
Evil Dead. Yeah. But yeah. So like, and that isn't, it is funny because I'm now realizing obviously you're connected.
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it.
If you're listening, Sam Raimi, another big one where Dawn of the Dead was huge for me. I mean, the whole Dead trilogy was, but Dawn of the Dead specifically. And then like John Carpenter's The Thing. I feel like those are my holy trinity of horror movies that really inspired me.
Going back to religious horror, my dad showed me The Exorcist way before I should have watched The Exorcist.
That's
I fell asleep
about as intense as you can get.
Yeah, I fell asleep because it was like a double feature and I was, crashing from all the candy. And I woke up the next day and he's like, I am so glad you fell asleep. It's like I forgot about that movie.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember.
So of course, like the next night, like he went to bed, I put the damn movie on and watched it.
That was actually also a big one for me. Not the full movie, which I saw a little later, but I remember watching the Oscars with my parents when I was young, and they showed a clip, like a 2-second, maybe 1 second clip from The Exorcist in like a sizzle reel, and it sent me running upstairs. And I remember saying to my mom, I was like, "Who in their right mind enjoys that?" Like genuinely, like what the hell was that? No, that movie's so. I mean, I still think like it's not even in the movie, but there's like a promo image of Reagan. I guess it's a promo image, like the like scary maze game. You know what I'm talking about? Like the picture of Reagan. It's still like one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Like it's just, they captured such a look.
It's still so effective. I don't care what anybody says. That movie still creeps me out.
Do you guys, I don't know if you remember, I think it was TNT. I think it might've been Monster Vision, but they would just show it was like when they would advertise for, especially around Halloween, or AMC, we know would do the Halloween thing. And it would just be like a montage of like all these horrific clips from movies. And I remember like I would get used to like the sound of the commercial coming on, and like I would just like instantly get terrified because they would just flash all these like horror. Because I remember The Exorcist, I'm pretty sure it was in one. It just gave me the same feeling. Like you just see it for a second, you're like, well, yeah, that did it. Now I'm traumatized.
It's just burned into the brain.
Yeah.
I have very specific questions for you about YouTube.
Oh, please.
Like you're killing it on YouTube. You started about 10 plus years ago now?
Yeah.
How do you decide when you want to make a film for YouTube only or put it in a film festival? Because is it about a 50-50 mix that you do some in Fest and some on YouTube, or is it mostly YouTube?
It's definitely mostly YouTube. I think these days, like last couple of years, it's weird, right? Because like we're in that weird place where it feels like there's no right answer. And it's a little bit just a luck of a draw any which way you try to go. I feel like because I had been trying to really cultivate a YouTube audience over a longer period of time, it made it easier to feel comfortable releasing something online. And like sometimes they don't do as well as others, but there's something of an audience there now, which is great. I think it's a lot harder to assess when you're truly putting it out into the void versus when you're putting it into a film festival. I think the biggest thing for me, like the biggest assessment is like, and I had this with Portrait of God. Actually, this is funny with Horror Origins. I remember I submitted to Horror Origins and a couple other places with like pretty quick turnarounds. And I remember thinking, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so I did like this weird hybrid, but I put it online a little bit prematurely, partly because I was just like, I don't want to wait. Like, I don't want to wait forever to get it out there. And we take a while to make these movies. Mm-hmm. And so I remember Horror Origins reaching out and being like, we can't put you in competition because we have you weren't supposed to do that. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize, totally on me. But I was like, I totally get it. Like they were still down to screen it and everything. But it's one of those things where like, you want it to be seen by people. You want to go to these things. You want to see it with an audience. And so there's all these reasons to do festivals, but you also want to like get it out to an actual audience and like the biggest audience as quick as possible. And so in terms of like, what the best thing to do is, it's hard to say. I think online is the best thing in this day and age if you're gonna really strike with an audience. But like that's kind of the end of the journey for it, distribution wise, right? And so like I think it makes sense. I think the safer option is to do some fests and then put it online, so that you can at least roll the die with some bigger fests. Because if you can go to those, that's great. Or even some like in the middle fests that you can go to, that's great too. But if it's like waiting on a bunch of fests that you just don't know what you're going to hear back and you don't know if you can go to them and there's all these question marks, then I think it's up to you if you just want to like roll the die online and get it out there.
What do you think your magic sauce was? Like, why did Portrait of God hit 8 million and others? And when I say others hit like not as well, we're still talking about the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views your films get. But why do you think Portrait of God hit 8 million?
Well, I think that there is a very real like, when you put something out there, if it's resonating with people, they will share it. Like there is that just on a natural level happens. And if you can get people to share it, then you can, I don't know what the YouTube algorithm, like, magic is. I
don't think anybody does anymore.
No one does, right? That's kind of the beauty and horror of it. But I've had shorts that I think are not as good with good thumbnails that somehow hit the algorithm. And like, I attribute it to probably being something like that, where like, it's a very shareable thumbnail. That's it. Portrait of God, the thumbnail is whatever, but I think that it's something that people were sharing because it's very hooky. And I think some of the other shorts just aren't quite as hooky like that. even if like some of them might be better or like I might prefer. I think that's all it was. It was like a good combination of like the thumbnail is fine enough as long as it's not like a thumbnail people don't want to click on. And then it captured people enough with, I think the title is a big part of it. Like it is a title. Sometimes I really struggle to know if a title is the right title, but like that one, there's no other title for that. That's just what the film is. And that's what the piece is. So
I'm curious too, just based on that, like it's kind of going off of Josh's secret sauce question, but have you ever felt compelled to like, I don't know, put money behind like ads or anything, or have you just sort of like put it out there and sort of let it grow organically and see what happens? Like, or do you do anything in addition to posting the videos?
I haven't done ads, and I'm genuinely curious if those work, because I feel like I've seen more and more like creative ads, like creators putting their work out there, and like I'll come across something on my feed and I'm like, oh, I follow this person. Like I assume it's a filmmaker I follow, and I see it's an advertised film project, and it can genuinely catch my interest. I haven't done that, but I have tried to share it. Like when I put it on YouTube, I will try to share it to as many places as I can, like, beyond social media. I guess this falls into social media, but like Reddit was a good place, especially early on, to try to get like, it doesn't really catch fire there. Or maybe it does, but it's very hard to, but you can get like extra eyes on it, and those people can share it, and that can hopefully snowball. So like I would post stuff on the horror subreddit, and I'll get people these days that I'm meeting with who will say like, that's where I saw it originally. So
that's cool.
Yeah, actually, I think that's where I get the most people in like the horror community talking about, like when I meet them and they talk about where they saw it. That's typically where. So I think it's really worthwhile posting it on, as many subreddits as you can. I know there are rules against like too much self-promotion, and like obviously you got to work within that and around that. So just blasting it out as much as you can. No one else is going to do it for you. I mean, maybe a couple people on your crew. So like, and then hopefully it gets rolling.
Have you thought about, or have you submitted your films to other YouTube channels like Alter or Dust? Or
I've had this conversation with a lot of like fellow horror YouTubers that I'm buddies with. Trying to figure out if you should put your stuff on those channels, like submit to those channels and do that versus like have your own channel and try to kind of cultivate and curate that. And I would say it's in your best interest to put stuff in a place where people will identify it with you. Like it's very true that like you are trying to build kind of a brand for yourself, not to get too like businessy, but I think it's really true where like I made a decision pretty early on that like I was going to make my channel just my name so that like people knew. It sounds a little egotistical, but it's just like a reality. Like
that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I mean, we're Heebie-Jeebies Pictures for a reason. Like we're branding ourselves, and
But it's one of those things where I saw people submitting their films to like Alter, and they'd get a lot of views in a best case scenario. And I knew some people who had that, and it's great. But only a particular percentage of people watching Alter actually understand, not to be harsh, but like they think Alter's making these. Like they genuinely, they don't stick around for the credits. They're just like subscribed and they watch the shorts that Alter puts out, and they don't understand that they're a distribution channel. And so the filmmakers, I think, get lost in the sauce there, but they get an audience. So like, and sometimes the audience is industry, and like that they will find who made them. So like there can be real value there. I think it's more of a short-term value usually than like if you slowly build an audience that is there to watch your stuff. There's not necessarily a wrong way to go.
Was there a film where something just hit, where you could kind of see like a trend of like, oh, this did really well, I need to keep doing this? And then what was that like?
Film?
Yeah, or just like was there one of your shorts you felt like took off?
There was one short and it was years before, like we made it years before it actually got some kind of traction online, and it's not a good short. Like it's a really old short, but it has a thumbnail that was catchy to people. The thumbnail was probably the best part of the short. Like I even knew that at the time when I put it up. I was like, oh, that's gonna be a killer thumbnail.
You have this heightened awareness since you were a child and up till now, where I'm just like, let me get some of that.
I don't know. It's growing up with the YouTube brain rot. The short is called The Pretty Thing. And
that's the first one I've seen of yours. When I went back through your stuff,
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's not a bad film, but you are correct that like the thumbnail is effective,
and it also is like the biggest scare in the film. So there's a whole conversation about thumbnails and whatever, like whether you want to spoil. But that one, like we put it online, and then like a couple years later, like literally out of nowhere. This was just one where like suddenly the YouTube gods like came down and they were like, this is the chosen one. This slop is the chosen one. And it was, it started getting like hundreds of thousands of views in the course of like a month or two out of nowhere. I could not tell you what happened.
God, what a cool but strange feeling. Like, were you just like, because I'm assuming, do you get like email notifications that are just like, dun, 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 like subscribers? Like,
no, but I had the app, like it's funny. This is like right before I had monetized. So I had like just hit like 1,000 subs or something. And my roommate at the time, because again, this was years after we had made it, was like, hey, you should, I don't know, maybe he knew something. He was like, you need to monetize, because I could have, and I just wasn't doing it. I was like, I don't want to sell out.
Stick it to the man.
Please sell out.
I was like, this is the beginning of the end for me. No, I wasn't getting notifications, but I do remember refreshing that app like an unhealthy amount of times to see how it was going up, and kind of being like horrified by it too, because I didn't like the short at that point. I was like, this is like, I know it's not good. Like, stop. So
we did a feature like, I don't know, 12 years ago or something like that. And it was the first time in my life where I really had to put up with like negative comments and things. Like, it wasn't on YouTube. I think it is now for free by somebody that's not me. I don't know. It had a limited run on Redbox, and I thought it was so cool. And, I'm just going through these comments. I'm like, oh my God, these people are so mean. I did nothing to you. Apparently I did the biggest travesty, which was make this movie. But I'm curious, like, in the stuff that you've made, like, how do you sort of like work around that? Like, do you feel like there's ever times where people suggest things like, and you like take that to heart? Like, I feel like you've gotten so much with the YouTube, like in terms of like views, and have made so many films. Like, is there any learnings that come from that?
It's just inevitable that like when you start to get comments that are negative, and I think it's pretty much specifically online, like people don't do this face to face,
right?
Like it just doesn't really happen. Yeah,
you don't walk around the street screaming at people.
No, I gotta
How
get
dare
on
you
that.
wear those shoes out in public?
I mean, it's funny. It does make me curious. Like before the internet, like filmmakers growing up, like, because I actually think it's kind of helpful to get the negative comments. It's just like the way you engage with it naturally develops into a place of being healthy, hopefully.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Right? Like I think early on when you first see those things, because you'll get strays with your best work. Like even if you're like, this is great, and like a lot of the comments are nice, there's going to be the stray, like
there's that one comment at the bottom.
There's always
like,
that one.
That's
it's
like a
you
deep
ruined
cut.
my day.
Yeah.
Like it's something like really personal, or they're like, wow, I wasted 20 minutes of my time.
You wasted
like
2 minutes of my life. I'm like,
hey,
wow.
I'm like, why did you sit through it all? Like you didn't know that at like a minute.
You could have bailed at the 30-second mark.
Yeah.
So you wasted my time.
But like I think like when you start putting stuff online, you start getting that you want to respond. Like there's a natural instinct to respond. And I did respond to early ones, and it wasn't like hostile or anything. It would always be like, sorry, like curious what didn't work. You're starting to engage. I think what I've come to realize is like, I think it's great to engage with people commenting if they're being constructive, genuinely, which can happen. If they're being, nice and positive and you want to like engage with them in that way, that's great. But I think like at some point, like you just realize the sheer volume of insane negativity online. It's funny. I was going through some of the comments for like even this announcement, and like seeing some people in comments of like, weird Twitter threads or whatever talking about it, seeing like what the reaction to it was. Like, yeah, there are some strays that are like insane, like bizarre comments that I won't even repeat.
Sure. Yeah.
At some point you just realize, like, again, by sheer volume, that you just can't engage. You have to kind of be numb to it. Like, unless they're making a real point, which again is rare. Like it's rare that it's usually phrased in a way that's completely unhelpful.
We've now turned it into like a fun, like drinking event where we'll just make a drink and like read YouTube comments, and in different silly voices. And it's actually, I look forward to it. Like in film festivals, if we have downtime, that's what we'll do, is like, hey, we got an hour before the screening. Let's go see who's Hates Checkpoint, or one of our other movies.
That's fun though. That's a good way to do it.
In terms of how you've grown as a filmmaker, obviously, like you're making films for yourself, you're making what you want to make. And I feel like that's something we talk about every now and then. Like for me personally, I feel like it's more about the idea of like, make what you want to make, and chances are people will relate to it. And I'm curious, when you come up with your ideas, are you sort of trying to think now, especially with the feature, like, commercial versus, something personally fulfilling, or where's your head at with a lot of that nowadays?
Definitely. I think that that's been an interesting thing to navigate over the past couple of years, because there's that idea of like, it's an incredible opportunity to make something like this at a studio level. But then naturally you're thinking like, okay, well, it's going to be a studio movie now. Like, how does that change the way we're making it and the way what kind of thing we're making? Because if it's like a really scrappy indie thing, it inevitably is just going to be different in the sensibilities and like who you're delivering it for. And I've never had to think that way before. And I think it's important to think about that just enough, but like, you got to make sure you're still in love with it, right? Because I mean, honestly, just for the sheer fact that like, it's so hard to make a movie that if you don't like it, you're just done. Like, you're toast. Like, it's too long of a process and it's too hard at the smallest level, that even at the highest level, I think you got to make sure that you have that going into it, even if you're shaping it in a slightly different lens and for a slightly different audience than maybe you thought you were. Because I originally, very early on, was thinking about a feature version of Portrait of God that was really, really, really confined, like micro budget. I do it all on my own. And naturally, that version of it was not commercial at all, which not to say it wouldn't have been good and like something I would have been excited about. I'm sure it would have been, but the version now is something that is a little bit more what you would imagine a studio version to be. And I think that can be something that's nerve wracking, but I also think that could be the best version of it. And I'm hoping that is the best version of it. So it's a weird needle to thread, but I have been thinking about it a lot.
It's really exciting to have that opportunity to grow something from not only the short to your first feature idea of what the short could be to now the studio level film. Was there anything that you've retained from like this, your previous versions into this new? You don't have to go into story detail, but is the evolution of it? Like, are you holding it? Like, I want to hold on to this bit.
Just because there's definitely things that have carried all the way through. There's things about that original story that like work and interest me separate from the portrait. And like, there are things that I have found I've woven into other things I'm writing. So that's interesting, where like, it's kind of split into a couple different projects. Even more importantly, perhaps, like there's a very clear line between the short and the feature. Like there is the version I was going to do before was far more of a kind of abstraction from the short than the current version. The current version, the short, can very much exist in that kind of world, if you will, which I think is hopefully a good thing.
You brought up a good point, I think, too, about like, being in love with the project and like, and it's so interesting because I feel like it, like to your point, exactly, like even with the short, it's like you're still looking at, potentially a month, a few months, half a year, whatever.
It feels like forever.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I do feel like every time you end up making a film, it ends up like this sort of relationship that I'm just going to be in love with this for the next few months. And obviously making a film is hard. Obviously, like doing anything with this is tricky. What are some of the things that sort of keep you going? Obviously being in love with the project is sort of one factor in sticking with it. But are there other things about the process, whether it's story specific or more general, that you sort of like, I guess, thrive on doing this for a living? Once
you start to get other artists coming into your space and bringing their own work to it, that's like really revitalizing to me. Like, and this isn't even necessarily speaking to projects I've done thus far, but like, it's like the prospect of getting to this point down the line that I find really exciting. Like the idea of a storyboard artist who, I mean, because I'm such a sucker, as we all are, for like behind the scenes stuff. It's like, as you start to see like artwork being made for it, like that's so cool. And that gets you like jazzed up about it again. Like we got to a point where we were taking meetings with people who were interested. And I made this deck to talk about like the visual side of it, like as a director, what I was going to be doing with it. And that was really exciting to me. Like to start to think for the first time after a while of working on the script, to start to think as a director again, visually, like how I would make this, and starting to like, doing a little bit of artwork of my own for the sake of this presentation, where I'm like, oh, like I'm actually getting to see this even at a very basic level. And that excites me. So I think it's starting to like move from step to step. I think every step has like a little bit of excitement to bring to the table to keep you going. And then along the way, there's also just a lot of like, brutal realizations and things to keep you down. But I think that's like the tug of war, right?
Sure.
You mean it's not all rainbows after this?
Rainbows are gone for good.
The rainbows have left. You clearly have done a lot of like, so have you edited everything you've done like on your channel at least? And then like, we talked a little about you do most of your all visual effects, color, the whole shebang. Like you wear a lot of hats.
Mostly.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, as we all do, right? As you do.
Oh, I don't.
Oh,
Jason
never mind.
wears all my hats.
Josh has two. No, I edit for a living. So like editing is my day job. And so for me personally, editing is my favorite part. Cause I think exactly what you're saying too. It's this opportunity where you finally get to see the movie become a movie. Do you have a favorite part of the process?
Yeah, I think editing is the piece for me. When you're getting towards the end of editing and you're just adding those like last touches where you see like it visibly improving or audibly improving right before your eyes. And it's like, I just think that's really fun as you're seeing it come together.
You can actually go to the beginning of the timeline and hit play and watch a movie.
Yeah.
You're just like, yeah.
It's so fun.
You're a kindred spirit in the post world where I feel like a lot of the same stuff I've seen in your behind the scenes. Like I've been there with like the roto brush and, using bokeh, finding all those little tips and tricks you can do to manipulate something after the fact to get more of what you want.
I always feel horrible talking to people like you who can do it all. I don't edit my projects. I work with Jason. I like having that collaboration and working with an editor.
Well, there's something to be said for that too, right? Like I think that there's a real advantage to having an outside perspective. If there's somebody you can work with who can do.
Yeah, I'm also just lazy. I don't want to.
Until I make it worse, and you're just like, oh, I should have done it myself.
I got to start back over. No, I like the writing process is my favorite process because even if it doesn't go any further than the page, I have a full story that I'm proud of.
And you don't have to rely on anyone else. Like
I can die
at that stage and you've got a story, like you said.
I can sit in a dark room and cry in my beer as I realize it's shit and no one's ever going to read it.
As you write Finn on the last page.
One more question and is if you had any advice for filmmakers coming up, not just me and Jason.
Any advice for me and Josh?
Nope, none.
Okay.
Let's wrap this up. No. Sorry, go ahead.
If you were starting off today, what would you wish you'd known?
Oh my God. See, now I'm going to give like a way too long answer probably. I think it's like a bunch of things, right? I think like a couple main things. One is keep it really simple because at first you don't realize you have to make it good. As I made more and more shorts, I kind of always had this feeling that like they got to get big at some point, right? Like at some point I got to level up and even like applied to thinking I needed to do stuff outside of horror. Like there was this kind of like false mindset of I got to make a drama someday, like something real. But I think I've realized pretty quickly that like a lot of the best stories are those really confined ones, those really, really specific ones that hone in on their resource, everything we've talked about, right? And like lean into what you like. Like I really liked horror. And so I feel like there was like this weird kind of, especially at film school, that weird kind of like, I should be doing something else, but like, no, like make the thing you want to make and you got to love it. I think it kind of touches on everything I'm going to say will touch on everything we've talked about already. Like even when it comes down to like getting your work out there, like think about the options you have and think about the space we're in now when it comes to like where stuff works online. Like if I were making films now, this is going to sound maybe like cringy or something, but like a lot of my shorts have gotten most of their views from like people reacting on like TikTok and like weird places like that. So like maybe share your stuff on TikTok, like be the person who's putting it out there, like just like spread your stuff as we've talked about, take advantage of social media.
We didn't talk about the behind the scenes stuff that you've done, but you're going to probably see us rip you off with that because I really enjoy your behind the scenes.
We've been trying to get some for these ones that are premiering out, and we've been kind of figuring out like, do we have like behind the scenes? And I'm like, this is like the perfect template. So thank you.
I mean, I ripped off like David Sandberg is kind of like.
I was about to say like it reminds me of some Pony Smasher.
I love watching his stuff.
But his are like so in depth and like I'm a little because it takes a lot of time to do a behind the scenes video and like. It's purely for the love of the game. Like there's nothing you get out of that except like sharing that experience, which I love.
I like it so much because I mean, we don't get them on DVDs anymore, right? You don't get the behind the scenes on streaming services.
And I would love to watch yours. Like, please do it because I will watch. I eat them up. So please do it.
We don't get the DVD commentaries. I mean, that's how I learned like, so many things. I mean, just watching like George Romero's, the Dead trilogy and just listening to like those guys talk. I was like, oh my gosh, the Evil Dead like commentary. Like there was just so many little things where they're just talking about something in the scene. And then it's like, but it's like a lesson that you're also like picking up on. You're like, oh, wow, that is cool. I'll do that.
It was film school before we went to film school.
Totally.
All right. Well, Dylan, thank you so much, man, for being on the show. I learned a lot. This was awesome. If you have not checked out Dylan's films, you need to go do that ASAP because they're all incredible. Where can people find you if they do want to go do that?
On YouTube, it's just my name. It's just Dylan Clark. It's like a little red thumbnail. I think you'll find it. And then on Instagram, I am Dylan MC Clark US. That's like maybe the best way to spell it out. Dylan LeClarkis. I'm honestly not really on social media too much, but a little bit on Instagram. So YouTube and Instagram are probably the two.
Outside of the feature film that you're working really hard on, do you have anything else people can look forward to coming out on YouTube, or are you taking a bit of a pause?
Oh, no. I mean, I would love to, time permitted, I'd love to do a video talking a little bit about the process getting it to this point for the future. There's a short that I mentioned that we shot last year that has been very slowly being completed in post, and I'd love to get that online. That I definitely want to do behind the scenes for that. So I definitely very much want to, like, in the name of David Sandberg, as we were talking about, like, that man never stops with his YouTube stuff, and he's a busy guy. So I'd love to keep doing that as much as I can.
You're doing it. You're living the dream. We're all proud of you, and
Thank you.
we can't wait to see what you come up with.
Yeah, man. Such a
Thank
pleasure.
you very much.
Take care.
Hey, yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you asking.